7 of Inktober 2020. We have got in, we're getting into it, and we're still not even 10 days in, but I'm still not getting bored of it. If you don't know what the challenge is, guys, the challenge of Inktober is you get yourself an ink pen, any kind of ink pen. You can have an ink pen from, my personal favourite is a Uniball I, Fine Line 710 or 0.7, can't even really remember. It's not even written on it. I don't know, it's a 7.0. And then also you could use some Copic markers, or you can use Crayola, or you can use marker pens, anything you want to use that is an ink pen. The rules have been changed since the first original prompts were put out, I think 2005, 2006, something like that, where you could only use pen, no pencil sketch, just what's cut, free flow out of your hand from a pen. The rules have changed since then. They've become more relaxed, so you can kind of sketch before. I'm not doing that. And I did exactly the same thing last year in 2019. If you didn't check that one out, you can go and check out the playlists for that one. But if you don't know who you are, if you don't know who I am, if you don't know who you are, where the hell that's a bit strange. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Blut084, BLUT084, and I am going to be live every single day of Inktober. I have been so far. If you haven't missed those, if you've missed any of the other prompts from Inktober, then you can go and check them out, because they all stay up on the they all stay up on the channel, so you guys can check it out at any time. You don't have to be here live, but if you are here live, thanks very much for joining me. Don't forget you can leave some comments, and I will check them, Kate, about every 15 minutes or so to check if anybody's there. But I can't think anybody's there, because I will get a pop-up in about, well, when my cup of tea is. That's where you'll get a pop-up. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to move that cup of tea because I'm minging. But like I say there, somebody's just popped in, somebody's just said hello. Let's see who's joined us today before I get into it. And I'll show you, I've got some references. That's because, as you know, guys, I got to use references for the for drawing. I just need a little bit of an aid. I'm not going to be copying the drawings. Well, copying to a degree. I will be making my own pictures out of them. But yeah, I've got some references, and I will be using these. Let's check what you guys are saying up on the channel. We have got, sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Mar Gaming Mobile. He says hi, or is it she says hi? It's Mar Gaming JR, long time no see. No, look, I guess so, buddy, because I don't remember your name. What game did you join in? Or did you join in on... Where have you come from? Dude, I've got like people from Instagram, I've got people from TikTok, I've got loads of people from YouTube that chat to me. Where are you from, bud? So give me a bit more of a reference. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. You haven't been here in a while. That's probably why I don't recognise your name, bud. But welcome to the stream. If you don't, do you know about the rules of Inktober? Do you know about Inktober at all? Have you been catching up and watching the other episodes? I am live here every day. For Inktober, that is. After that, I'm going to be taking a little break from illustrating, and I'll probably go into VR. Maybe do some polymer clay. I'm not sure yet. You don't know the rules. Would you like to me explain the rules? I have already done, but I will quickly do it again for you, as you've just joined. Cool. Just another quick question. Have you joined in on art projects before, or are you more of a gamer fan? Because the camera I'm using for the live streams is obviously a little bit different than what I'm used to. Hopefully the sound's a lot better. Hopefully the visual's a lot better. And yeah, everything should be a lot better with this new camera I'm using. What are you saying there? You're not sure. Never mind. No worries. Okay, so Inktober. Let's start again. Excuse me, I was going to burp. Because it's just had me dinner again. Oh, no, every time. Every time. Why do that to me? Why do that to me? Right, okay, so Inktober. Inktober as itself, it doesn't matter what year it is, but Inktober, we are in 2020. If you missed 2019, you can go and check that out in the playlist. But until then, I will explain again what Inktober is. Inktober is, you get 31 days of October. So each single day, every single day of Inktober, that's 31 days, you get a different prompt. Hello, Blue Sister. How you doing there? Just quickly explaining what Inktober is to Mars Gaming there. So you may as well listen to that. But I'm going to do a quick one because I already kind of have at the beginning. But what I was saying is Inktober is a thing for every day. Every day you get 30. You get prompts for every single day. Prompt is a prompt word or a word that you get every single day to make a different drawing. I've done a few already, and I do colour them after off stream. I don't colour them on stream, so this is just going to be the black and white version. It'll take me about an hour or so to get really finished on the drawing, but the whole thing of Inktober is you get yourself an ink pen of any sort, whether it's like this. I've got my Uniball Eye fine liner. You can use it for writing, you can use it for illustrating. I've got my Copic markers here, which I'll use for shading. But you can use these for illustrating as well if you want. You can even yourself, if you've only got Crayola marker felt tips, you can use those. And if you've got a markers, you can use those as well. You can use literally any kind of pen you want if you have a preferred pen that you like to use. I personally like to use this one and these ones here. I kind of given up on these because these are from last year and they're kind of running out, but they're good for shading occasionally. I don't use them that as much anymore. But normally what I would do is sketch first with a pencil. Now the rules, they have been changed, but the original rules were you could only use an ink pen and a free flow whatever and freehand some illustrations for each day. Today's word is what is today's word? Today's word is fancy. So we have to do a fancy picture. Because the first word was fish. The second was wisp. Third was bulky. And then we get radio, then blade, then rodent, and fancy is today. So yeah, if you are new to the channel and you don't know, then go and check those out. But I will be only using a Uniball. And then I'll be colouring off stream, but I will be making a live TikTok as I go along, as I always have been, so you guys can check out how each step goes if you don't want to watch the whole stream. And if you don't want to watch the whole stream, I completely understand, guys. You can always watch it back at any time because these streams stay up on the channel, and this is pretty much all I'll be doing for the next. Have a great day there, buddy. Thank you very much for joining. But yeah, I've lost my track now. I've lost what I was saying. What was I saying? Please, somebody help me. I was saying something. You threw me off. But yeah, I'm going to be drawing something. It's going to take me about an hour. Only using an ink pen. No pencil sketching. The rules, like again, the original rules were you could only use a pen, and that was the rules. You just sort of tested your limits and see what you could do. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be anything, as long as it's a drawing. I try and do the best of my job as I can, because I normally use a pencil and then sort of work out where everything's going to be, where I want things to be, and how I'm going to be sort of drawing it and stuff like that. Right, I'm going to get my prompts back up. Not my prompts, sorry. What are they called? Things. My brain's dead. We've got, what are these? References. That's what they are. Yeah, I'm going to use these as references only. I'm not sure if I want to do a cat, because I did do the last one was a rodent, so I thought I'll maybe do like a fancy cat. Do a fancy man with a fancy lady on his arm, maybe something like that. So like a fancy man, something like a fancy lady on his arm, something like that. Maybe a cat. I don't know if I should do a cat like with it, or a fat cat, or like a fancy cat. So yeah, I've got a few references that I wanna be using, and I will be. I'm going to be listening to the never-ending DC Infinite Crisis audiobook, and we're on part 3. Hopefully, and there's a part 4 as well. Okay, so I think there's only part 5, part 6, part 7. I'm not sure if somebody's actually put out the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to listen to this one probably for the last time today, because I'm kind of getting bored of Infinite's Crisis, because it's infinite. It doesn't seem to go anywhere. I mean, I'm not really listening to the story. Hopefully you are, and hopefully you are enjoying it. If you want to go and check it out for yourself, again, it's just type in YouTube, DC Infinite Crisis audiobook part, and then 1, 2, and 3, and 5, and 6, and whatever part you're on. We're on part 3, I think. I mean, I keep missing and misplacing where I am on the story, and going back to where I think I am. But yeah, we're going to be listening to the rest of that. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. If you don't, fair enough. Let me know what you do enjoy, and I'll listen to that instead. As long as it's not too risque and it's not got any rude bits in it, I'm quite happy to listen to it. Purely because I do prefer to listen to something that's not going to get me in trouble or give me any copyright. If you've got any music that you would like to promote, please let me know down below, and I'll find where you are if you're on YouTube or if you're over on Spotify or anything like that. Let me know where you are. Let me know in the comments down below, and if you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe bell. Ding the bell for notifications, and leave a thumbs up and all that good stuff. So let's get on with the story. I'm probably not going to talk too much through this, other than to explain what I'm doing, but I've kind of already explained what I'm going to be doing with this. I'm going to be getting on with this. Hopefully you will enjoy it. Don't forget, if you want to chat to me, all you got to do is leave a comment, and it will pop up around about here. If I don't see it straight away, I do apologise. But anyway, guys, Alexa, set me 50 minutes on a timer.
50 minutes, starting now.
And I'll check the comments in another 15 minutes. So Alexa, set me a timer for 50 minutes.
Second timer, 50 minutes, starting now.
I did 50 minutes again, didn't I? Alexa, cancel last timer.
You have 2 active 50-minute timers. To cancel one, visit the Alexa app.
Fine, I'll just leave it on then. Alexa, set me 15 minutes on a timer.
Third timer, 15 minutes.
All right.
Starting now.
And I will check those comments in the next 15 minutes. To say if there's nobody here, it's fine. If you know you guys come back. But anyway, I'm going to get on, stop talking, stop waffling, and try and get some illustration done today for Inktober Day 7.
Playing from me.
Yes.
SMT110.
Was accustomed to feeling a joyous sense of homecoming whenever she returned to this blessed haven, safely removed from the woes of the outer world. But not today. Paradise Island was under attack by a veritable army of Omax. Flames of billowing black smoke rose from the city, whose tidy streets and courtyards had become a battlefield. Amazon warriors, clad in the traditional bronze armor of ancient Greece, fought back against the relentless tide of cyborgs, employing both modern firearms and sharpened swords and spears, according to each individual woman's talents and resources. The Omax retaliated with lethal energy blasts and bladed weapons that extruded from their blue ceramic shields. Other Omax snatched the Amazons' lit spears out of the air, then hurled them back at the beleaguered women, often with fatal results. The cyborgs hovered in the air, taking advantage of their ability to defy gravity, while the embattled Amazons fought on foot. Amazon blood stained marble steps and colorful mosaic tiles. A few vanquished Omax were scattered amidst the bodies of their victims, but the Amazons were clearly taking the worst of the damage, as was their city. Ornamental columns and statues were blown apart by the cyborgs' destructive blasts. Stray gunfire chipped away at infinite stony freezes. Formerly tranquil gardens were set ablaze. Above the chaos, the Omax spoke to each other in amplified electronic voices. Wonder Woman realized that she was witnessing brother-eyes cybernetic revenge for the slaying of Maxwell Ward. It was not enough that the crazed satellite destroyed her good name by broadcasting the execution video throughout the world. Now it planned to murder her sisters. She quickly took stock of the battle below. The heaviest fighting seemed to be taking place in the central agora, where Artemis, the military commander of the Amazons, was leading a squad of female warriors in defense of the Temple of Science. Like the goddess after which she was named, The flame-haired Artemis had a bow and a quiver of arrows slung over her shoulder, even as she fired at the Omax with an Uzi submachine gun.
Hold the line, sisters! Or never spear off!
Wonder Woman wasn't about to let Artemis and the others fight alone. Not when she had brought this calamity upon them. She dived to join the besieged city. Her arrival did not go unnoticed by the Omax.
Target Alpha 2. Maximum priority dictated.
Pausing in midair, she blocked laser blasts with her silver bracelets. The deflected beams bounced back to the Omax themselves, scorching their polished exteriors. Unhooking her lasso of truth from her hip, she spun it before her like the blade of a propeller, so that it sliced through the air in front of her, and anything else that came within its destructive radius. A powerful kick sent another Omac flying out over the nearby harbor.
Leave my sisters alone! They have done nothing to deserve this.
She swooped down over the blood-spattered Agora. Artemis and her troops had been driven backward onto the marble steps leading up to the temple. A marble portico loomed behind them, now scorched and scarred by the battle. The fallen Amazons were sprawled upon the steps. Diana prayed that they were only injured.
Rifle! Covering fire! Fall back! Get the cover!
Intent on ordering her soldiers, she failed to notice the Omax silently descending from the sky directly above her. Its crimson eye flashed ominously.
Target acquired.
Diana flew toward the Omac as fast as she could. Not even she, however, could outrace the speed of light. A scarlet ray struck Artemis in the back. She dropped face first onto the ground.
I'm having trouble here.
Smoke rose from her black leather cuirass as she rolled painfully onto
Never
her
draw
back.
faces.
Wonder Woman was relieved to see that the fallen Amazon was still breathing.
Partial result. Assessing.
The Omac appeared puzzled by its target's survival. Exposed wiring could be glimpsed beneath the scorched leather on Artemis's back.
Posit. Personal defensive shield employed.
The Omac lighted in for the kill.
Modulating primary weapon spectrum for optimal shield penetration.
Artemis's eyelids fluttered open. She struggled visibly to remain conscious.
Oh, shut up and do it already!
The Omac was more than willing to oblige.
Formulation complete. Target acquired.
Wonder Woman grabbed onto the cyborg's head and yanked it sharply to one side. The deadly blast went awry, taking a chunk out of a marble column instead. Taking care not to break the Omac's neck as she had Maxwell Lord's, she slammed its head into the steps. The Omac did not get up.
I was wondering when you were going to show up.
Artemis was still flat on her back. The fiercest of the Amazons, she was second only to Diana in strength and valor. Wonder Woman helped Artemis to her feet. She deflected a laser blast from another Omac. The surviving Amazons continued to defend the temple, firing back at the advancing cyborgs with spears and bullets.
How bad is it?
That was marathon bad. And we're not the Persians. Athens won marathon.
Oh, I'm gonna black all that out anyway.
Sword from its scabbard.
Only
In
with
fact,
a
no, I won't do that. I'll figure it out. I can't believe I just messed that up.
Wonder Woman did her best to shield the other Amazons from the Omac's senseless assault.
So last pick,
Her flashing
annoying
sword
me.
kept a trio of killer cyborgs at bay, defending for the moment. A few steps away, a younger Amazon tended to a wounded comrade.
Dare die on me, Tekla! You hear me, you old crow?
Diana recognized the voice of Carissa. She had great affection for the young blonde, whose baby face belied a witty tongue as sharp as a dagger. Glancing back over her shoulder, she saw an Omac hurl a captured spear down at the distracted Amazon.
Carissa, watch out!
Her warning came too late. The spear struck Carissa between her shoulder blades, impaling her. She collapsed atop the injured Tekla. A second spear came plunging at the other one.
Let's no!
Wonder Woman sliced the spear in two with her sword. Her quick response saved Tekla, but not Carissa, whose lifeblood was already spilling down the steps into the Agora.
Please, take your...
Artemis emptied her clip into the airborne cyborg. Armor-piercing bullets blasted through the Omac's smooth blue chest, and it crashed to the ground. Blood seeped through the cracked ceramic plating. Wonder Woman turned Tekla over to another Amazon, who helped the injured woman hobble into the shelter of the temple.
These Omacs have innocent people inside. They're being controlled against their will. Our sisters are dying!
Tossing her empty Uzi aside, Artemis drew her bow.
What do you suggest we do? Lay down our arms?
powerful arm sent a speeding arrow straight through the skull of an oncoming OMAC.
Surrender and die? What?
I don't know.
Back to back, they faced the invaders, while paradise burned all around them. Power Girl and the older Superman stepped outside the grotto to let Lois sleep. Despite her joy at being reunited with Kara, the ailing woman clearly needed to rest. The last thing Kara wanted to do was put any additional strain on Lois's health, now that they had finally found each other once more.
Can't lose her again. That would be too cruel.
Kara was still reeling from her newfound memories.
It's so much to take in, but it's wonderful.
I haven't seen Lois smile like that in such a long time. Thank you, Kara.
She stared down at the sleeping woman. Lois looked so frail, so weak. Quite unlike the vibrant older woman Kara now recalled.
What's wrong with her?
She was just getting old. Her body was already weak back in our refuge, but traveling here just made everything worse.
He scowled, an uncharacteristic look of resentment on his face.
That's what this Earth does.
There has to be something we can do.
This Earth you've been on since I left, it's corrupted, Kara.
He stared up at a towering wall of crystal. Images from the world beyond appeared on the many facets of the crystal. The Spectre on the loose, the Society conspiring, the Omax laying siege to Paradise Island, the Ranthanagarian War.
How do they live like this?
Like what?
Joyless.
He shook his head in dismay.
Alexander has kept records. He's shown me so many things the people you work with have done. To their adversaries, to each other. They alter minds, they kill. I never really understood why I survived when the others didn't. Or what my purpose in this new universe was. Not until now.
The images on the screens shifted. Once again, Kara saw a single Earth emerging from the cosmos-shaking crisis of years gone by.
When the universe was reborn, Earth 1 became the primary world. The scraps of the remaining worlds were folded into it. But I finally realized something. We saved the wrong Earth.
He turned away from the wall and laid a gentle hand upon her shoulder.
I need your help and support, cousin. We can save Lois. We can save her if we can take her back home.
Behind him, the crystals displayed a montage of scenes from the forgotten history of Earth 2. The original Justice Society convening in their secret headquarters. An adult Robin, who never became Nightwing, fighting crime in Gotham City. An older Wonder Woman training her daughter on Paradise Island. The daughter of Batman and Catwoman taking on the masked identity of the Huntress. Superman and Lois flying above Metropolis after their wedding. The bizarre images were no longer unfamiliar to Power Girl. She now remembered this world as vividly as the one outside the fortress.
This corrupted and darkened Earth must be forgotten as ours was, so that the right Earth can return.
San Diego. The shoreline was less than a year old. This part of the city had once been several miles inland, but that was before a tremendous earthquake dropped a good third of the city into the Pacific Ocean. The damage to life and property had been extensive, but San Diego had slowly begun to rebuild. Docks, warehouses, marinas, and seafood restaurants now crowded the newly created waterfront, until a new catastrophe threatened to tear open the city's scars all over again. The hurricane lashed San Diego. Cyclonic winds tore at the buildings, sending broken glass and shingles flying. Rain flooded the sewers, spilling out into the streets. A tremendous tidal wave surged toward the shore, only to come to an abrupt halt a few yards from dry land. A huge wall of water hung in place above the piers and parking lots, blocking the waves directly behind it. Foam cascaded over the top of the unearthly barrier. A red-haired woman in an iridescent green wetsuit shouted over the roaring winds.
Hurry!
Mira, one-time queen of Atlantis, used her hard water powers to keep the raging sea at bay. A tiara made from a polished seashell crowned her head.
I can't hold these waves back much longer. We need to get everyone somewhere dry.
Where would that be, Mira?
This was Dane Dorrance. A dark-haired human was the leader of the Sea Devils, a private team of deep-sea explorers and adventurers. His people were spearheading the emergency response effort, along with San Diego's own cops and EMS workers. All around her, Mira glimpsed the Sea Devils helping agitated and injured people evacuate the waterfront. Their distinctive red wetsuits made gamespeople easy to pick out amidst the chaos. Scuba goggles protected their faces from the torrential rain.
They're reporting over 60 Category 5 storms across the world. 3 on the U.S. coast alone.
How the hell is that possible?
Sigourney Arnonsson's long blonde hair was soaked by the tempest. The Swedish woman was a relatively new addition to the Sea Devils. Mira had never met her before.
I don't know.
Mira came from a different dimension, and she knew Earth's oceans well enough to realize that there was something deeply unnatural behind this sudden spate of hurricanes, along with the red skies, earthquakes, and other freakish natural phenomena that seemed to be tearing the planet apart. She'd even heard reports of a floating rock exploding over Gotham City. Disasters invariably brought out leaders and other predators, and this storm was no exception. As if the hurricane weren't threat enough, a strike force composed of aquatic supervillains seemed intent on pillaging the sunken city beyond the shore, where a small colony of water-breathing humans struggled to build new lives in what was now called Sub Diego. Even as Mira struggled to hold back the flood, she could see a heated battle raging amidst the storm-tossed harbor. New Wave, a female villain whose body was literally composed of water, crashed against Tsunami, an Asian heroine who surfed atop the waves as gracefully as an Olympic skater on ice. New Wave's sneering face was sculpted from churning white water. She reversed direction and came at Tsunami again. But the heroine used her water-controlling powers to set up a counterwave that canceled out New Wave herself, dispersing the villain for the moment. Tsunami watched the frothing water warily, waiting for New Wave to reform. Her concentration was broken when a blonde-haired mermaid grabbed her from behind, dragging Tsunami beneath the waves.
It has to be Simon. Certainly gives other mermaids a bad name.
Mira longed to go to Tsunami's aid, just to even out the odds. She had recently lost her ability to breathe underwater. Confined to the shore, unable to join the battle, the best she could do was try to aid the imperiled surface dwellers, especially now that she was one of them. Tsunami and the others were on their own. A sudden storm surge got past her barrier. Over 20 feet high, the wave barreled toward the bus loaded with funded evacuees.
Alexa, stop. Okay, I'm getting really confused with this picture.
In the path of the oncoming wall of water, they were only seconds from being swept away.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Mira's alabaster brow furrowed in concentration as she formed a wedge of solid water right in the center of the wave. The towering storm surge split in two, veering away from the bus on both sides. Instead, the divided swell smashed into two adjacent storefronts, blowing out the windows and tearing the roofs off both buildings. Mira winced at the damage, but better the stores be destroyed than the defenseless people in the bus. She smiled in relief as the vehicle finally got moving. Hills or no hills, it was good to know that she could still protect the innocent.
Good save!
Rain pelted Dane's face. He stared out over the harbor, where the winds whipped the sea into a frenzy.
Wonder how bad it is below.
Mira shared his concern. In her heart, she feared the true battle was being waged miles beneath the surface in San Diego.
Who knows? But if anyone can help hold back the seas, it's their heroes and their king.
Fight all you want, Aquaman.
Red lenses glowed like eyes upon Black Manta's saucer-shaped helmet.
San Diego will soon belong to us.
The infamous undersea terrorist Black Manta fired a spear gun at Aquaman. The jet-propelled harpoon sped toward the hero's face, but his reflexes were even faster. He swiftly swam to the side and grabbed the shaft of the spear with one hand.
Easier said than done, Manta.
The sound of his voice traveled through the water 5 times faster than it would have in the air. His blonde hair swayed in the current like the fronds of a sea anemone. The orange scales on his tunic glittered like chainmail. His finned trousers were as green as a merman's tail.
This city is under my protection.
Over 200 feet beneath the surface, Sub Diego rested on the seabed. In some ways, the sunken community still resembled its sister city above. Paved streets and sidewalks connected shops, department stores, restaurants, apartment buildings, boarded-up tenements, cemeteries, churches, synagogues, and even the ruins of the old city zoo. Street lamps and parking meters lined the sidewalks, along with dozens of now superfluous fire hydrants. Towering cranes overlooked construction sites. But life underwater was gradually transforming the city. Algae and barnacles now covered the graffiti. Seaweed and anemones sprouted from cracks in the pavement. Soggy paper peeled off the billboards. Rusting cars and trucks that would never again burn gasoline now housed sea urchins and coral gardens. Drowned palm trees rotted away. Fish swam through the streets and alleys. Crabs replaced cockroaches. Sushi was the only cuisine available. Powerful currents stirred up by the hurricane had driven most of the population indoors. Kelp blew like litter through the empty streets. The genetic experiments of a mad scientist had turned hundreds of men, women, and children into water breathers. Still adjusting to their new condition and environment, these people relied on Aquaman to keep them safe, while Sub Diego evolved into a whole new way of life. He had already chased Black Manta out of town once before. This time, however, Manta had not come alone.
The society's numbers are far greater than yours, brother.
Ocean Master wore a flared golden mask, concealing the features of Orm Marius, Aquaman's treacherous sibling. Sharpened spines crested his cowl. A heavy purple cloak billowed behind him as he stood atop an undersea glider. His mystic trident fired a blast of eldritch green fire at Aquaman.
And more visions!
Aquaman's left hand had been consumed by piranhas years ago. In its place was a magical blue hand composed of living water. His open palm blocked the sorcerer's bolt from his brother's trident. Enchanted water quenched the emerald fire. Ocean Master had not been exaggerating, however. Luther's society seemed to have recruited every underwater villain in the seven seas. Looking about through the rippling blue water, Aquaman spotted King Shark, Sea Wolf, the Marine Marauder, and the Eel, among others. He had battled each of them in the past, but never all at once.
The cowards. Do they expect me to shrink before their numbers?
Thankfully, Aquaman had allies of his own. Sharks, whales, squids, swordfish, and other sea life swam to the defense of Sub Diego as he telepathically summoned them from miles around. He smiled grimly as an enormous octopus attacked the Slig of the Deep Six, one of a half-dozen scaly aquatic aliens from the planet Apocalypse. Powerful tentacles enveloped Slig, while a school of electric eels jolted his extraterrestrial comrades. Flashes of blue electricity sparked across the aliens' metal armor. Starfish clamped over the creatures' faces, blinding them.
Well fought, my friend.
Spear in hand, Aquaman swam at Black Manta, only to be distracted by the sudden approach of the Marine Marauder, a huge red cyborg with a fish-like mechanical tail. The Marauder was built like a tank, with bulky steel armor shielding his flesh and blood components. It was nearly twice Aquaman's size. A 3-foot blade extended from his wrist. Bubbles rose from his steel-plated breathing apparatus.
Ready for rematch, Sea King?
The Marauder had tried raiding Sub Diego a few months back, only to be driven off by Aquaman and the Sea Devils.
That modern trick won't save you again.
Last time around, Aquaman had used his aqueous blue hand to disrupt the Marauder's circuits. Guessing that the cyborg was securely insulated now, the undaunted hero took a more direct approach. Switching the spear to his water hand, he parried the Marauder's slashing blade with it, then slammed his normal right fist into the villain's metal faceplate. Muscles conditioned to survive the crushing pressure of the ocean depths lent superhuman strength to the blow, which cracked the Marauder's burnished red mask. Bubbles streamed from the ruptured helmet. The air-breathing villain was forced to swim frantically toward the surface.
So much for the Marauder. One down, how many more to go?
By now, more humanoid reinforcements had joined Aquaman in the militant sea life on their clash with the society. Some of Sub Diego's bravest citizens swam up from the submerged city to engage the enemy. Among them was Lorena Marquez, a Hispanic teenager who now called herself Aqua Girl. Her two-piece blue swimsuit was of Atlantean design.
Here we come, Arthur. We'll teach these freaks not to mess with our city.
But before she could catch up with him, a cage of compressed water closed around her. Throwing out her arms, she strained to hold back the walls of the cage, which threatened to crush her to a pulp.
Aquaman, help!
A nearby figure in a sleek black wetsuit grinned.
The entire sea is mine to save!
Mort Coolidge, known as the Eel, was was a telekinetic criminal whose powers worked most effectively on water.
How can he help you, girl?
He gestured at the liquid cage, and the walls pressed in on Aquagirl, squeezing her arms to her sides.
All I need to do is increase the pressure. No!
A killer whale chomped down on the eel, not quite biting off his head and shoulders. The watery cage instantly dissolved, freeing Lorena. She cast a grateful look at Aquaman.
The water may be yours, Eel, but the sea is mine.
All around him, the battle heated up. Captain Marauder, commander of Sub Diego's nascent police force, led his officers against Seawolf, an amphibious German werewolf possessed of gleaming fangs and claws. The shaggy, lupine monstrosity looked distinctly out of place beneath the waves. That didn't make him any less dangerous. Conventional firearms didn't work underwater, so Mauraud's officers were armed only with rust-proof batons and pikes. Marauder himself preferred his massive fists. Experimental gene therapy had transformed the veteran cop into a humanoid mix of whale and walrus. Seawolf's claws slashed at the captain's thick gray hide, but Marauder grabbed onto the water-breathing werewolf's throat, throttling the beast, while the other officers pummeled the creature with their batons. It was too bad that the metal rods weren't made out of silver, but fighting werewolves had been low on the undersea community's priorities.
Don't let him bite you!
Marauder kept Seawolf snapping jaws at arm's length. A golden badge shone upon the police captain's chest. Ivory tusks protruded from his lower lip.
Let's knock the fight out of this mangy mutt!
Charybdis, the Piranha Man, swam at the policemen and women, although it was unclear whether he intended to defend Seawolf or simply feast on the succulent flesh of the vulnerable officers. A mouthful of razor-sharp teeth leaned upon his grotesque subhuman countenance. Jagged claws reached out for human prey.
Forget it, bang face. No snack time for you!
Deep Blue, Tsunami's daughter, possessed the unique ability to enlarge and control sea life. A mane of thick indigo hair billowed around the turquoise-skinned woman's head and shoulders as she swam in circles around the Piranha Man. At her command, a school of miniature jellyfish suddenly blossomed in size until they were as big as octopi. Giant medusas swarmed Charybdis, stinging him with their oversized tentacles. He slashed viciously at the jellyfish. His pointed teeth gnashed against each other.
Good work, Debbie!
The Hawaiian superhero Neptune Perkins, Tsunami's father, swam toward his daughter, who was grappling furiously with an enraged mermaid. Webbed hands and feet propelled Neptune through the water faster than a porpoise. His long black hair streamed behind him.
You guard those police officers. I'll help your mother.
But he never reached his wife's side. Not one, but two mutated sharkmen ambushed him en route. King Shark bit off Neptune's right arm, while another villain, known only as the Shark, ripped a meaty chunk out of the hero's side with his voracious jaws. Bright red blood clouded the water, mercifully hiding Neptune's small body from his horrified wife and daughter. The two Sharkmen continued to tear at the corpse in a veritable feeding frenzy. Shark-like fins crested their misshapen skulls. Reacting to Deep Blue's thoughts, the giant jellyfish dispersed in a panic, freeing Piranha Man, who tore into the police officers restraining Seawolf. Captain Marauder suddenly found himself alone against the thrashing werewolf, who broke free from his grasp. It was impossible to tell who was more savage, the piranha or the wolf. Black Manta loaded another harpoon into his spear gun.
Ah! Seems the tide of battle turns in our favor.
Aquaman's horror turned to righteous fury.
The Society just declared war, Manta!
Taking hold of his harpoon with both hands, he sped through the water like a torpedo, straight into the heart of the shark's bloody feast. Without mercy, he drove the spear all the way through King Shark. The villain sank toward the ocean floor, trailing a cloud of blood as he weakly struggled with the spear that had skewered him.
And so am I!
Genuine sharks and barracudas were attracted by King Shark's leaking blood, providing a touch of poetic justice. The other sharkman lunged at Aquaman. The Sea King smashed his fist into the shark's mouth. Shattered teeth exploded from the creature's jaws. He tumbled backward through the water, clutching his face.
Now then, where is Manta?
Arthur Curry bore a special grudge against the deep-sea terrorist who had murdered Aquaman's infant son years before. Spotting Black Manta a few fathoms above him, he kicked toward the helmeted villain. Powerful strokes carried him rapidly upward against the raging currents. A harpoon whizzed harmlessly past his head. The stormy weather had thrown off Black Manta's aim. A vice-like hand clamped onto his ankle. Glancing down, Aquaman saw that the alien Slig had managed to extricate one arm from the tentacles of the octopus.
Not so fast, Earther. My dark side's dread name you will pay this dignity. And so will I challenge pets. Unhand me!
Aquaman stamped down on the alien's scaly face with his other foot. His heavy green soul crushed Slig's bestial snout. Writhing in pain, the alien let go of Aquaman's foot. Purple blood streamed from his nostrils. Aquaman paddled away from the injured Slig to go after Black Manta again.
Enough!
Ocean Master blew again on an empty conch shell, sounding a retreat.
We pull out now! The Society needs us elsewhere. We'll finish with San Diego later.
He turned his glider around. Aquaman couldn't believe his ears.
That's it?
He swam after the retreating villains, watching in frustration as Manta and the rest fled toward the vast Pacific Ocean.
You think you can just leave now? That you can begin and end the conflict at your whim?
The glider's twin turbine engines left a stream of bubbles behind it. Aquaman wondered if Ocean Master had been scared off by King Shark's well-deserved end.
This isn't finished, Storm! You wanted a war! I'll give you one! But it is finished, Orin. You have lives to save here, both above and below. I know you. You won't leave these people behind.
Ocean Master disappeared into the distance. He was right. Curse him. Aquaman remembered the hurricane ravaging the surface. Mira and the others were still in danger. He'd never forgive himself if his estranged wife were drowned by the very seas that she had once ruled by his side.
What's happening up there?
Ocean Master tapped an earpiece on his cowl. He couldn't resist delivering one parting shot.
In fact, if what I just heard is true, you're going to be much too busy to fight a war against anyone.
Aquaman could practically hear the smirk on his brother's face.
Why, when you find out what's happened to Atlantis, you may wish that we killed you here and now. Atlantis?
His fabled undersea kingdom was thousands of miles away in the Atlantic Ocean.
What are you talking about? What's wrong with Atlantis?
Located over 10,000 feet beneath the surface of the Atlantic, the domed city looked like the world's biggest snow globe. Graceful spires and archways rose beneath the protective crystal dome that shielded the people of the city from undersea storms, pollution, and predators. Salt water filled the dome, helping to resist the tremendous pressure exerted on the dome from outside. Ordinarily, the water-breathing Atlanteans paid little attention to the transparent ceiling high above their heads. Today, however, they watched
Forgot to do the
seismic tremors
TikTok.
on the ocean floor. Violent currents and vortexes tore up the seabed outside the dome. Frightened Atlanteans could see silt and sediment being hurled wildly about the ocean depths. Undersea volcanoes erupted in the distance. So far, the crystal dome had withstood the earthquakes and turbulence, but for how much longer? All eyes turned toward the magnificent palace at the center of the city. Strangely hued lights flashed in the windows of the highest tower in the royal residence. Swimming about on their daily business, the anxious people of Atlantis could only hope that their leaders were taking every measure to save the city from the tumult right outside the dome. Tempest, once known as Aqualad, presided over the ceremony. The young man whom the Teen Titans knew as Garth stood before an altar in a vaulted chamber dedicated to the god Poseidon. The convocation of his fellow sorcerers surrounded him as they attempted to calm the waters and steady the seabed. Hooded acolytes stood by to assist the wizards. The tiled floor of the temple was inscribed with ancient Atlantean runes. Mystic fire blazed impossibly upon the altar. Unseen forces caused swirling eddies to appear in the water around them.
This shouldn't be happening.
Atlantis was built upon a stable stretch of seabed, safely distant from the nearest tectonic fault line. Their geologists and oceanographers could provide no warnings or explanation for the agitated earth and water.
We can only pray that sorcery succeeds where science failed.
Tempest's eyes glowed with occult energy. Ceremonial black markings streaked his face. His black and red bodysuit evoked the flag of the esoteric Atlantean sect to which he belonged. He threw a rare undersea herb onto the altar, causing the eldritch flames to blaze higher. Power flowed into him from the other sorcerers, who occupied the four corners of the compass around him. Arian, Atlan, Nuada, and Hagen were each formidable wizards in their own right. Their flowing robes bore the emblems of their rank and power.
Between the five of them, they should be able to quell almost any disaster. Famous last words.
He couldn't help remembering that all the sorcery in the world hadn't been able to stop Atlantis from sinking beneath the waves nearly 10 millennia ago.
Let's hope that Atlantis survives this disaster as well.
Concerned spectators peered down from the gallery. Despite the chanting of the sorcerers, Tempest overheard snatches of worried conversations.
Why are we wasting our time here?
Koryak, Aquaman's long-lost son, was not known for his patience. The muscular youth paced back and forth in the gallery.
My father's city is under attack. They need soldiers, not spells.
That uncultured city is none of our concern.
Counselor Volko, a portly Atlantean scientist, had been the royal family's trusted advisor for as long as Garth could remember. Sub Diego was an inconvenient distraction as far as Volko was concerned.
We must see to Atlantis' safety above all else.
That may not be enough.
The white-haired young woman named Dolphin cradled her infant son against her chest. His wife's voice reminded Tempest of just how much he stood to lose if today's ritual failed. Dolphin was depending on him to keep her and little Ceridian safe.
You can bet that whatever's affecting San Diego on the surface world is targeting Atlantis, too. Why else would there be all these sudden earthquakes and storms?
She's right. We need to look at the bigger picture.
Another tremor shook the palace. Fragments of polished coral floated down from the ceiling.
First things first.
Sub Diego would have to wait until Atlantis was secure. Extending his arms, Tempest reached out with his magic, searching for the root cause of the ocean's unrest. Were the earthquakes simply a geological phenomenon, or was some other force at work? Tempest probed the Earth's mantle with his mind, but quickly realized that the true danger lay elsewhere. This was no natural occurrence. Something was profoundly amiss on the spiritual plane. Unleashed magical energy was running rampant, causing disturbances in both the physical and metaphysical worlds. No wonder everything felt so wrong. But what could have created such chaos? Apprehension showed on the faces of his fellow sorcerers. Garth sensed that they shared his growing unease. He tentatively searched the ether, only to feel something colder than the seas brush against his consciousness.
Wait! Do you feel that? Something's out there. Listen.
I hear you chanting Atlantis. I see.
Tempest had a horrible sense that they had just attracted the attention of something that should have been left alone. He hastily drew back his mind, but feared it was already too late. It knew where they were now, and it was coming.
Dolphin, get our son out of here!
Garth had no chance to see if she escaped the chamber in time. All at once, the water around him began to churn and bubble. The bright orange flames upon the altar turned a sickly shade of green. The other wizards looked about in confusion. They stared at each other with fear-stricken eyes.
Tundana, your magic must be mine.
Before Tempest could offer any further warning to the others, he felt his energy being yanked from his body. Raw magic streamed from his eyes and mouth, erupted up toward the ceiling, and blowing the roof off the tower of the palace. Shattered coral and wonder of pearl flew outward over the city beyond. The black markings on Garth's face began to flake off, taking much of his strength with them. Bleeding fire erupted from the altar, enveloping him. Pale-faced and trembling, Volko pointed up at the ruptured ceiling. A huge green fist, the size of a whale, descended from above. The gloved hand smashed through the crystal dome that protected Atlantis. Heavy shards fell like anchors onto the city. Buildings collapsed, and hundreds of Atlanteans died instantly. The shockwave at the palace chamber. The outer walls caved in, burying the gallery. Volcalicoriac vanished beneath an avalanche of heavy rubble, only seconds before the gallery itself came crashing down onto the lower level. Massive chunks of limestone and coral rained down on Tempest, but were incinerated by the mystical flames pouring out of him. He stood transfixed within the blazing green energy, unable to move from the spot, let alone flee the crumbling palace. To his torment, he had no way of knowing if Dolphin and Ceridian had fled the gallery, or if they had perished with the others. But the disaster had only begun. Like the Red Sea in ages past, the waters of the Atlantic parted, exposing the undersea city to the open air for the first time in recorded history. Fallen acolytes, already knocked off their feet by the destruction of the dome, began to gasp for breath like fish out of water. The other sorcerers were unconscious, sprawled on the floor, unable to help the suffocating water breathers as they literally drowned in fresh air. Tempest knew that similar scenes had to be unfolding all over Atlantis. Amphibious by nature, he could breathe air as well as water. At the moment, he wasn't sure that was a blessing. His glowing eyes were drawn upward to the gaping hole in the ceiling. His jaw dropped as he saw a green-cloaked figure towering over Atlantis like a colossus. A ghastly white face gazed down on the devastation from beneath an emerald hood. His enormous hands held back the ocean on all sides, creating an open canyon between two immense walls of churning foam. Water quickly drained from the palace chamber, leaving only a few meager puddles. Stray fish, caught in the disaster, flopped helplessly on the drying floor. The blood of dead and dying acolytes turned the last few puddles red.
The Spectre.
As a magician, Garth was well aware of the vengeful spirit's existence. But why would the Spectre lash out at Atlantis now, after all
Alexa,
these years?
how long's left on the timer?
You have two timers. A 50-minute timer with about 10 minutes left. And a 50-minute timer with about 10 minutes left.
Oh god, okay, 10 minutes. 10 minutes to at least be happy with the picture. I'm not going to be, I'll probably be a little bit longer than 50 minutes because I'm not finished. Still needs a little bit more. I can't figure out what.
The Spectre form cast an inescapable shadow over the wreckage below. Garth didn't understand. What was the Spectre talking about? Atlantis had earned every moment of its survival through hard work and sacrifice.
Our history is one of courage and perseverance.
He heard buildings and monuments crashing to the ground outside. Desperate Atlanteans cried out for their king, but Aquaman was thousands of miles away, in a different ocean. A strange odor reached Garth's nostrils, and it took him a few seconds to recognize the smell of smoke. His mind boggled at the thought. Atlantis was burning? The average Atlanteans had never seen a genuine flame in their lives, except perhaps under controlled laboratory conditions. They couldn't even begin to cope with an all-out fire.
This is insane.
Once again, Tempest feared for his wife and child. Were Dolphin and Ceridian out there in the chaos somewhere? If so, he needed to buy them enough time to escape the city before the Spectre destroyed
What's
them
behind the bar?
Exerting his will to the utmost, he regained control of what little power the Spectre had not yet stolen from him. He knew he was no match for the wrath of God, especially not in his depleted state. But his family and his homeland were depending on him. He threw out his arms, gathering up raw, theurgic energy from the crackling green flames around him.
Let's just put that theory to the test!
A glowing orange nimbus surrounded his body. He clasped his hands together, and an incandescent bolt of light shot upward at the Spectre's face. Tempest's defiance caught the giant ghost by surprise. He staggered backward, briefly losing his grip on the divided oceans. Cascades of foamy brine poured down on Atlantis. The waterfalls drowned the fires blazing throughout the city and provided momentary relief to the suffocating water breathers. Garth felt the cool spray against his face, but only for a second.
Bottom-dwelling maggot.
The Spectre's face contorted in fury. Death's heads glowed in the cavernous sockets of his eyes. He looked down in judgment on Tempest, who had used up the last of his magical power.
You dare dream that your paltry magics can stop me? I destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. I unleashed the plagues on the pharaohs of Egypt. My wrath brought down the fabled walls of Jericho.
He raised one foot above the city, so that the soul
Ah,
of his
go straight,
flashed out the
stupid
sky.
pen. Been in all the pits.
One damn soul, and yours shall be a city of the dead.
God saw the monstrous foot coming down.
No.
He prayed the dolphin and Ceridian had left the doomed city far behind them. Then, everything went black. Atlantis was crushed beneath the Spectre's heel.
Leave the others alone! If it's me you want, here I am! Come and get me!
Wonder Woman flung herself into the mass of Omax pouring into the Agora. Behind her, Artemis and her remaining soldiers fought a losing battle to defend the Temple of Science from the invading cyborgs. Despite the Amazon's fierce resistance, they had been driven back into the shadow of the columned portico before the Propylaeum, the front entrance to the temple. The once pristine masonry was now scarred and scorched by violence. A magnificent stone frieze that had formerly graced the top of the gateway now lay in fragments upon the blood-stained steps below. An Omac died like a guided missile at the temple, which sheltered many wounded Amazons, but Wonder Woman snared it with her lasso. Inking hard on the unbreakable lariat, she swung the cyborg head-first into the path of another oncoming Omac. Shards of blue ceramic casing rained down onto the open square.
Target Alpha 2.
The beams bounced off her indestructible silver bracelets. The bodies of Amazons and Omacs alike were strewn about the ravaged square. Smoke and flames rose from torched gardens and temples. Abandoned weapons, as well as blood-smeared helmets and cybernetic components, lay amidst the smoldering rubble.
Back away!
Wonder Woman knocked a cluster of Omacs aside with the flat of her blade. Dozens of small cuts and bruises marred her usually immaculate complexion. Sweat gleamed on her flawless face and limbs.
Objective: eliminate all Amazons.
To her dismay, she was not the Omac's sole target. While she remained locked in combat with dozens of identical foes, another wave of Omacs was launched at the entrance to the temple. The attacking cyborgs easily outnumbered Artemis and her few remaining warriors.
Beware, my sisters. They're coming for you.
Artemis and her forces fell back, retreating behind the towering ionic columns supporting the portico. The Omacs swooped toward the entrance, seemingly unobstructed, only to slam head first into an invisible barrier.
Now, sisters!
The empty air appeared to shift slightly as an entire phalanx of fresh Amazon warriors stepped out from behind a score of invisible shields. General Philippus, a dark-skinned Amazon of African descent, commanded the reinforcements. Polished bronze armor glinted upon her sinewy frame as she raised her sword high.
Now, sisters! Strike with Themyscira for hot and home!
The women poured out into the Agora, falling upon the stunned Omacs with spears and swords and guns. The invisible shields partially obscured their bodies as they took the battle to their enemy.
Isis, guide my aim!
An Egyptian Amazon drove the point of her sword straight into an Omac's solitary red eye. Other warriors followed her example. Machine guns, fired at close range, blew apart the blank blue faces of the Omacs.
Shoot for the head!
Wonder Woman spotted a handful of Omacs hanging in the sky high above the fray. Instead of assisting their fellow cyborgs below, they silently monitored the grisly conflict with their unblinking red eyes.
Reporting the slaughter for posterity, or broadcasting the battle live for all the world to see.
She feared the latter. Artemis rejoined her in the square.
These things are like the Hydra.
She unleashed a volley of arrows into the enemy lines, one after another.
We disable one, and two more arrive in its place.
She spoke truly.
Okay, so I'm done with the illustration. I'm just going to quickly go in with some more of these Copics and give some shading, but I don't think it's going to need too much shading, because I am going to be colouring it as always. I'll be colouring this one off stream. I'll do that one this afternoon after I've had my tea and all that. But I'm going to add a little bit of shading here and there, but I don't know where I'm going to put it, to be honest with you. I try to think about shading before I do it, because where is the light coming from? Because it's a bar and the light could be coming from everywhere again, or it could be just coming behind the bar, so that this would be shaded and all this underneath would be shaded, but this wouldn't be, because the candle on the table, but the floor would be semi shaded from on the bar upwards, especially the people would be a little bit shaded. So maybe I'll add that shading, because I'll add that shading block with that there, and same for her on here. So I'll start with the characters, and then we'll see what the background will need for shading as well, because again I'm confused on the shading. Without using a pencil and sort of quickly dabbing it here and putting it here and putting it there, I get really confused of where I need to put it. So I'm just going to quickly do this. And carry on. I'll have a quick sip of my tea. And carry on, I think.
The arrival of Philippus's troops gave them only a momentary respite. Looking upward, Wonder Woman saw the sky literally darken as yet more Omacs massed above them. Part of Diana was glad.
Okay, so I'm going to tap record. Give me a second. Alexa, stop.
Purple energy surged up.
Alexa, stop.
The dazzling ray struck the wing of Omacs like one of Zeus's own thunder.
Alexa, set me another 50-minute timer, please.
50 minutes, starting now.
Just in case.
Stricken cyborgs dropped like flies, raining down on the courtyards and rooftops below. Amazons ran for cover as the inert blue missiles crashed to Earth. Wonder Woman turned to look behind her, where a futuristic silver cannon had just been rolled out from somewhere deep within the Temple of Science. Gleaming brightly, as though newly made, the awesome weapon had a barrel the size of a battering ram. Sophisticated electronic gauges and components covered the huge apparatus, which was aimed at the sky above Paradise Island. Amethyst-colored energies crackled and flashed within the cannon's capacious muzzle. Diana smelled ozone in the air. She knew what this must be. Long had the Amazons benefited from their legendary purple healing ray, known for its amethyst beam and mysterious healing properties, and now it had been reconstructed into a tool of war.
Behold the purple death ray!
This was Io, the master weaponsmith of Themyscira. The ingenious Amazon was seated directly beneath the barrel of the cannon, manning its controls. A targeting visor was clamped over her eyes. A cybernetic helmet concealed her short brown hair. A scuffed leather apron suggested that she had come straight from her forge.
Completed as ordered.
Diana knew Io to be a gentle soul, more at home in her workshop than on the battlefield. She could only imagine what it had cost the peaceful artisan to construct this perversion of one of the Amazon's greatest treasures.
Is this why we have been fighting so hard to defend this one temple? To buy Io time to build this weapon of mass destruction? Merciful mothers of us all. Artemis, what have you done?
The destructive ray had indeed repelled the Omacs' onslaught, but only at a fearsome cost. Dozens of dead cyborgs lay on the ground, charred and smoking. Their blackened shells were cracked and shattered, revealing the butchered humanity beneath the artificial plating. The lifeless faces of innocent men, women, and even children showed through the broken armor. Diana found herself staring down into the glassy eyes of a middle-aged Asian woman who was someone's mother or sister or lover. She gagged on the odor of burning flesh.
We did what we had to. At my order, EO built the ray.
Diana looked about her, appalled at the slaughter. It had always been theoretically possible to create a superweapon by inverting the healing ray, but such technology had been deemed off limits. Until now.
No. These were victims, not villains. We needed to save them, not destroy them.
And while we struggled to do that, we should have let them murder us? What would you have had us do? How should we have defended ourselves?
Not this way. You have taken that which restored life and twisted it into something that takes life. You have made every fear man's world has ever had of this island and of what we represent come true.
What's done is done. The war is over.
No. Don't you understand?
Wonder Woman shook her head sadly and pointed to the west. Yet more Omacs, more numerous than Rome's fabled legions, came soaring through the sky toward Themyscira.
The war's just starting.
She readied her sword to meet the oncoming storm. Batman watched the Amazons kill and be killed. Brother Eye's pictograph icon still occupied the center of the flat-screen monitor, but inset images, beamed live from Themyscira, showed Batman the bloody conflict as it unfolded in real time. Brother Eye was also broadcasting the live footage to all of the world's major news networks. Batman stared in horror as Diana and her sisters battled for their lives.
You're killing the Amazons!
Yes. Wonder Woman and the Amazons pose a threat that must be exposed.
Batman lunged from his seat.
Shut the Omacs down, Brother Eye! Shut them down now!
Negative. Protocol Truth and Justice must be completed.
No, damn it! Stop it!
Batman grabbed onto the back of his chair and hurled it angrily at the icon on the screen. The chair crashed against the monitor with all the force he could muster. A crack snaked across the screen, dividing the eye icon in half, but the sophisticated equipment continued to function. Fresh images of death and carnage played out upon the screen. Sweat and blood streamed down Diana's face as she hacked at the Omacs with her sword, her fellow Amazons battling beside her. A view from another angle showed a crimson beam burning the flesh of an unlucky Amazon's bones. Her sisters retaliated with an alarming purple ray that cut down Omacs by the dozens.
I will show the world the truth. I will bring the world justice. I will do as you programmed me to do.
The icon vanished from the screen.
Damn it, wait!
Batman's insane creation was no longer listening. All that remained upon the screen were the bloody images from Paradise Island, plus a digital display counting down the minutes and seconds before the black box security video from the watchtower could be viewed. Playback 27:34. Less than half an hour to go. Batman turned away from the cracked monitor, unable to look at the war footage any longer. He dropped onto his knees, overcome by guilt and a crushing sense of failure. Despite his best intentions, everything seemed to be spiraling out of control. This wasn't supposed to happen. Images flashed through his memory. His mother and father being gunned down in Crime Alley years ago.
Of course.
The young Bruce Wayne vowing
Yes, of course. You can't have a
upon the
Batman story or Batman in it
Batman
without
clearly
Batman
broken
thinking about his
body
parents
just in
being
time.
shot down, murdered.
After the Joker murdered the second Robin. Amazons dying by the score. His heart started pounding wildly. Nausea gripped his stomach. A cold sweat broke out beneath his uniform. I can't breathe. Can't do this anymore. So much death and tragedy. Had he really accomplished anything after all these years? He had become Batman to save innocents, to spare others the heartbreak he had endured as a child. And yet, the bloodshed and brutality only seemed to increase with each passing day. And the harder he tried to control things, as with Brother Eye, the worse things got. God, I wish I could just start over again.
Maybe you can.
Batman looked up to see a caped figure come striding onto the underground ledge. The glow from the monitor screen fell upon a familiar red S. Superman?
Yes. but not the one you know.
Gray hair showed at his temples as he stepped toward Batman. His smiling face was lined with age.
Not yet.
And I just can't stop talking about them. People like Helena Wayne and Andrew Vincent and everyone I ever cared about back on Earth, too. They don't even exist anymore, but I remember them all. God, I must sound crazy.
Kara sat at the foot of the elderly Lois's bed, keeping the old woman company. Power Girl was still excited by her restored memories. Her past was no longer a mystery to her.
You sound just fine to me.
Despite her obvious happiness at being reunited with Kara, Lois was frighteningly weak. Her frail hand rested atop the younger woman's. Her skin felt like paper. She glanced around.
Where's Clark? He said he needed to go talk to someone.
Alexander Luthor entered the grotto.
I'm sorry to interrupt you two, but I really should run a few more tests on Lois.
His holographic control panels and floating globe, she'd overheard him calling it his world view, accompanied him as usual.
And then you need some rest, Lois.
Kara felt a twinge of guilt for keeping the old woman from sleeping.
He's right. It's just that we have so much lost time to make up for.
I enjoyed talking with you. Get some sleep. I'll see you in a bit. Take care of her, Alex.
Of course. Looking after Lois is my highest priority, Kara.
He gazed down on the old woman, who was already drifting off to sleep. The crystalline walls of the grotto offered glimpses of her dreams, of happier days, when she and Clark were both just starting out in their careers. Kara smiled at the scoop-hungry young reporter Lois had once been. A dark-haired spitfire, willing to brave any danger for her story.
She's been like a mother to us all.
Power Girl left the grotto and headed toward the exit to the cavern.
Okay.
A little fresh air sounded appealing.
Okay. I am not going to put any more shading in there because I believe I don't need to, other than maybe a bit around his head there. Just to show that there a bit. But other than that, I'm done. So hopefully you have enjoyed today's prompt word, which was again fancy for the Inktober 2020 challenge. If you're joining in, please let me know in the comments. But if you're enjoying what I'm doing and you want to see more of it, don't forget to tune in again tomorrow for day 8 of Inktober. Again, I'm really enjoying this and hopefully you are too. So don't forget to leave a like if you do. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new. And I will be back tomorrow. Click the links that will appear if you want to check out anything else that I've done. And if you want any more character designs or how to draws, then check out the Creation Station playlist. Links will appear if you're watching back. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Don't forget to tune in to TikTok so you can see how all that turned out on there. And I will be colouring this one off stream later on today, and I will be posting that later this afternoon. So tune in later on, guys, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.